So, how many people are communicators in the room? Few. Programmer? Few. Designer? Couple-ish, and everyone's all wishy-washy with the designer thing. Other people in here? What do we got? Managers? What do you got? What was that? Accounting assistant. That's fascinating. Better you than me.
Just sort of middle of the road. You know, it's never clear. You kind of have to fill in the blanks.
Okay, cool. How many people are representing some sort of campus-wide web team here? A few people. High traffic page, like a home page or a popular department or something. How many people just a department? And how many people are vendors? Couple. It's got a little couple of everything and some people that aren't anything. Why aren't you anything? You guys didn't raise your hands, did you? You're a student. That's a good reason. Okay, I approve of that. Okay, so my web company, Gravity Switch, we've worked with a whole bunch of people, a bunch of whom you've probably heard of, a bunch of whom you've probably never heard of. We've been around for almost 20 years, and I have this dream of higher education, and it's a little corny because this is what geeks dream of, right? But I'm an efficiency nut. Like at the end of the day, I want everything to run really, really, really smoothly. And I'm convinced that the bottleneck on campuses for websites does not need to exist. And the reason I'm convinced of that is because 8, 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, Gravity Switch was making websites the same way campuses are making them right now, and it's bad and it doesn't work. You know, it works better than nothing. It was great. I remember defining these processes. In like '98, I was teaching a graduate level class on internet strategy, and we were trying to figure out, you know, is it called a skeleton or a wireframe or a paper prototype? And we'd have like, this was like a week-long faculty conversation. You know, when we have our curriculum, what do we call this thing? And defining these processes. I remember creating them and how much better they were than when we were winging it. But there's so many better ways to do it. I'm going to share a whole bunch of them here. And the other thing I'm going to put out there is when this happens, if it continues to snowball the way I think it will, a lot of my business is going to go away because a lot of my business is building these websites for higher education departments, and I really think colleges need to be able to own their message the same way they don't outsource admission. They might outsource a print campaign for admission, but they don't outsource new student orientation or anything like that. They need to also own their communications through websites, and I think it's totally possible. So if anyone's on a campus team that wants to do that, Yale and Harvard's turned me down. MIT sounds interested, but who knows? Any campus that's interesting, I want to make it happen. I want to put myself out of a job. So there's my geeky dream. So now into the tips. So the first tip is use WordPress or Drupal. The reason for that is, first of all, technology is not the issue. The reason web projects fail is not because of not enough technology. I mean, how many times have you like woke up stressed because something's not working, and the problem was you just didn't have enough programs and operating systems and buttons and triggers and features and plugins and all that crap? I mean, never, right? The problems always comes around communication. It comes around goals, and I'll talk about some of these other ones. But I mean, the way it breaks down is WordPress is the crown king of CMS. Drupal is doing very, very well. 3 years ago, Joomla was on any slide like this. They have completely dropped off, except in Southeast Asia for whatever ungodly reason. But on higher ed, it's split pretty evenly between Drupal and WordPress, and the rest of them, I mean, it says other. It should just say crap right there, and I might probably remake my slide and call it a day. The other one I'm going to put out there is going to be very, very contentious, which is Squarespace. Does anyone use Squarespace? Does anyone even know what it is other than annoying commercials? A couple people. What Squarespace does is makes it really, really simple for $10 a month to make a site that looks decent, that has up to 20 or 30 pages and a few basic functionality like calendar and e-commerce and event registration, which, if you think about a lot of the sites that campuses need, that's all they need. Like, why would they have an IT person maintaining a server when for $9 a month you can have a really damn good-looking site that is easy to use by communicators? And so 4 years ago, the thing I was saying that was making anyone in campus IT cringe and swear at me and et cetera, was why are campuses hosting their own, why are they hosting all these different platforms? They should either have a standard platform or outsource hosting completely. Well, now those two concepts have started to come around in campus as being acceptable. Squarespace is going to be the next one. It might not be Squarespace. There's competitors to it, Weebly, things like that. Tip 2, start with goals. And if anyone needs these slides, you can get my card afterwards, and I'll send them around to you. I don't think I'm posting them anywhere. And so the one thing I want to put out there is a feature isn't a goal. Like a live chat isn't a goal. A discussion board isn't a goal. Like a goal is something top level. It's you know, the old Toyota thing, ask why 5 times. So we need live chat. Why do you need live chat? Because people can't reach us. Why can't they reach you? Because the types of questions they answer can't be answered well over the phone because they're timid. Whatever those questions are, okay, is live chat going to fix that? Work your way up the chain. Here's a problem here's a problem statement, and this is used. I use it a lot with for-profits. It doesn't always go over perfectly with education or non-for-profits. In the past time frame, you guys can read that. Why am I reading a slide? That's the stupidest thing I can do. So here's an example of what it might look like for higher education, for instance. This is why we're doing the website. And start with that before you do anything else, because then the question of live chat live chat's not a goal. Live chat will either help this or not help this, and you can mathematically prove whether it's helping this or not helping this. Put it on your site for a friggin' month and you'll know. Tip 3, steal. Famous quote from a famous artist that hopefully a couple of you have heard from before. Next up, test. Okay, so anyone that's in my talk before, I know there's at least 1 or 2 people in the audience that saw this. Sorry, you're going to have to see these again, but they're so insightful, right? Okay, so who's heard of Which Test Won? Anyone? Other than the people that were in my talk last time. So Which Test Won, as the name implies, runs a couple tests and tells which one gets the better results. So the only difference between these 2 pages is one of them says access premium content, use the solutions tool, and has these little icons that says a little more about what you get, and the other one doesn't. Which one do you think converts more? How many people think the one with the extra buttons converts more? 4? 3? How many people think the one with less converts more? 5? And a lot of people aren't voting. The winner is this one, 11% more conversion without the icons. Interesting, right? Okay, next one. And everyone's going to vote on this one, so pick one. The only difference is black background, white background, the word outstanding, the word out of the box. How many people think the black one converts better? 1/3 of the people. How many people think the white convert better? It better be 2/3. Someone back there's not voting. You got to vote. Okay, so 40% more. Only difference is black background and a word. 40% more. It's a huge amount of add to our cart clicks, right? Okay, one more. Text email versus fancy snazzy email. How many people think the text email converts better? How many people think the snazzy converts better? Text email. That's pretty. Those are big friggin' numbers, right? So how many people got 3 out of 3 right? And you were at my talk last time. So the moral of the story is don't guess, test. When you have a question, go and try it. You're going to be wrong. Start with the assumption you're going to be wrong and don't stress about it, right? I have a book to recommend you read. How many people have already read this? Don't Make Me Think. You should just write it down, go out and buy it, and read it. This guy is incredible. He's awesome. He tells you all this stuff that you basically say, yeah, I knew that. But you internalize it and you learn it in a new way, and you're like, and then all the other things he tells you, you think, I should have known that. That's so damn obvious. So he's amazing. While I'm on the topic of books, letting go of words, if you're into copywriting for books, I'm seeing at least one nod here. Awesome. Oh, it just came up in another session. Good call. Good call. We got smart people giving sessions here. Avoid bullshit. That's kind of my internal mantra when people are writing content. If I read it and I think that's bullshit, then it shouldn't be there. A lot of times people will tell me, that's the sort of stuff you have to write there. I work hard to get those people off the web team because they're doing the wrong thing. They're doing what they're supposed to do, not what.
You mean bullshit by people like or just like it could be learned?
Well, yeah. So here's an example, right? I mean, why would you on your social media stream write, well, how is everyone doing today? I mean, what the hell? Like, that's just, no one wants that. I mean, like, anyone that actually reads that Twitter stream is going to unsubscribe from it. And anyone else isn't reading it anyway. Or how about this one? Be part of one of UCLA's most ambitious projects to date. Vote for UCLA. Now, what they're actually doing is they're trying to get enough votes to get like a $10,000 grant. I mean, UCLA is a big friggin' college. That's not one of their most ambitious projects yet. And if we're getting like hyperbole like that every single day on their Twitter stream, we're off the damn Twitter stream, right? Does that make sense? Does that answer the question? There's a good segue into my next slide. I should have paid you for it. And so anyone that doesn't think that, I definitely have a bridge to sell you. So, the other one is trust students. This is something that most campuses are very, very adverse to doing. I find it fascinating. They will take a student, they will put them with a whole bunch of high school kids, and they will have them walk around campus telling whatever stories they want, completely unmonitored, completely uncensored. And they'll count on this being a good experience to draw the right type of students to the college. And they'll just send them away on campus for a few hours as student tours. And they won't let those same students post something to Twitter where it can be monitored, it can be responded to, it can be audited, it can be graded. I mean, it's totally kooky. So trust students. And so here's an example where I don't know if this was written by a student, but it looks like it was. It's soccer season, and we're winning with an exclamation point like it's a surprise. Like, this is not written by someone that's like a marketing fluff person. This is written by someone, this could very well be written by a student, right? Because that's the sort of thing where a marketing person would say, you can't write it that way. I mean, we're winning again. It's our third consecutive, like they try to fluff it up. And so again, just get students in there and so they also have someone who went to Jamaica. They retweeted her and then linked to her blog post, and I'm sure she talked about some things that maybe you're not supposed to talk about, because Jamaica kind of has a reputation for things that you're not supposed to talk about on a college website, right? I did an awesome user test where we took a whole bunch of college sites, and the college we were working with wanted testimonials all over the site of students, and so we went and found some college sites that had testimonials, and we showed them to a whole bunch of students. We were getting kind of like the high school kids were coming in, they were looking at it, and they're like, yeah, I don't pay a lot of attention. You get a couple people that are like, oh, I read every single word on every single site. I mean, I read. Are you one of those people? Is that why you're laughing? It's okay. It's totally cool. But then everyone else was just like, I just don't trust them. And one of the students summed it up the perfect way. He said, it's all those type A hoorah people anyway, and obviously those are the quotes they're going to put there, so I don't believe them at all. And so, I mean, that was kind of the vibe that everyone got. The one site that everyone, including this kid, looked at and said, I trust everything I'm reading on this site, had student blogs on it. And one of the student blogs that was featured on the homepage of, I think this was Wharton's MBA program site, said, for the first time all semester, we took the night off, we went to a bar, we didn't get back till 2 a.m., we drank way too much, like that was the blog post on the front page of the college website. Yeah, so embrace the bad. There's been a study by Harvard Business Review. Products with negative reviews sell much better than products that only have positive reviews. Same thing with college websites. Scary as hell, but it's a good thing. Next up, build a team. So I'm shifting topics a little. Am I going too fast? Is this good? It's kind of like popcorn. Everyone will get 3 points out of the 21 and we'll be golden, right? So your goal as a project lead is to make sure that you're getting the right people to do the right things at the right times, which it sounds so easy when I sum it up that way. Great, my job's done, you know? So I usually think of it as, these are the teams that we usually look at for any web project. They're stakeholders. And the stakeholder is the person that's going to go to bat for it, the person that's going to go to the chancellor, the person that's going to go take it all the way up to the top and say, this project's going to do the right thing. We have the right charter, we have the right people, and we're going to stick up for it. They don't need a large commitment. Now, sometimes a stakeholder wants to be super involved. That's okay, too. I definitely don't have a problem with that. There's another group called the visionaries, and visionaries are the people that are going to help set the direction. And so we need them a little bit at the beginning, and we need them a few times throughout the project to make sure that, A, we've figured out where we're going, we've set our compass in the right direction, and B, just to sanity check that we're still tracking in that direction. We don't need a lot of their time. And so often the people that we have for this are, you know, it might be the head of a department and the former head of the department, the one that's been at the head for the previous 10 years. So there's changes, so someone that can represent the new and someone that can represent the old. It might be someone sideways, so if there's a department that interacts with another department, or maybe someone farther up the ladder. Someone from admissions might be part of this for a department that's low on enrollment and needs to get their numbers up, or vice versa, although next to impossible to get admissions people into any meeting because they're always running around. Then you have the core web team, and they're the ones that really do all the work. They don't have to be any of those things, and often it works best if they're not one of those. It can work very, very well any which way, but core web team is going to be at every single planning session. They're going to move everything forward. They're going to be willing and able to roll up their sleeves and get stuff done. Then you have a visual identity team, and we make a distinction between the visual identity team and everything else here because these are people that can see things that other people don't see. They understand the subtle clues. They understand kind of the meaning of brand and how all that ties together. Sometimes they're photographers on a team. They might be people from other departments. Sometimes someone from marketing will come and sit in a department one. Sometimes we bring in, the campus-wide team. Someone from the campus-wide team will come in just for a department site, and they'll come in early just to make sure the direction's right, make sure it's tracking toward whatever the standards that are set down by the university. And the great thing about that is it's not uncommon to have like the university standards over here, and then but all the departments want to do over here, and at some point they have to mesh. And in our mind, the earlier you can make that happen, the better everyone's going to be. Like going around someone, it's just stupid. It doesn't work. And so their job is to provide visual cohesion throughout the whole thing. And then there's communicators. Communicators, I often tell people to bring whoever talks to students the most. You know, it could be a secretary, whoever writes the newsletter, whoever whoever pushes messages out to people. It might be one of the faculty member, and you do have to involve faculty at some level in every campus site, as I'm sure you know. That's not one of my slides, but in hindsight, it probably should have been. One thing I want to mention about the visionaries and the visual identity team, and actually we'll do perspectives, the last one. Perspective are other people that you might bring in, and I usually say that you have to make sure that anyone that can either be an ally when the site launches, or what's the opposite of an ally? An enemy when the site launches. You know, the person that's going to say you did everything wrong, you need to get them on your team and have them as a perspective. You need to bring them in once or twice during the project, and you need to position it right and make sure they understand what you're trying to accomplish and have their buy-in. It's so much cheaper to fail with that in the first week than it is the week after you go live, when they're spreading their poisonous, noxious crap around campus. You also want anyone that truly gives a different perspective. So if you don't already have a student and an alumni in any of the other groups, you want them in there. You want and you want diversity in there too. So if you know 90% of your team are women, you want to make sure you have some guys too. If you have mostly academics, you want some people that are more numbers based in there. Like, figure out what you need to do to balance it in terms of perspective. Usually I find, you know, for a department level site, that's usually less than 6 people, not always. For a larger site, I mean, that could be 30 people. I mean, you just never know, right? Is this cool? Exciting? Okay. So be inclusive. I already talked about this. Be transparent. Don't try to hide from people. Don't try to go around people. That being said, don't settle. And specifically on your core team, if there's anyone that's just okay, or they're not happy to be there, they're not psyched to be on the team, you gotta get rid of them. I mean, it'll just bring the whole team down, and life is too short for everyone to spend a bunch of time working around the one person that doesn't want to be there. And this is actually one of the first jobs of the stakeholders. So the stakeholders, one of the key things you have to have, and it's hard to have a successful process, is a stakeholder that's going to say, you know what? You said you wanted to be on this team. Obviously, you got a lot going on in your personal life. We're going to make you a perspective and take you off the core team, and we're going to put someone else on, or whatever that looks like. And that's sometimes hard to find in higher education, but it's necessary. Next up, working meetings only, and this is one of the reasons why you want to avoid that. So this is from Steve Krug's book, and I was at his talk the other day, and he used these slides, so I figured, what the heck, he's awesome, and I'll do the same thing. So you're sitting around, you're discussing things, a specific issue comes up, and so now here's where we start to get into religious debates. This guy over here is going to take a personal belief and pretend it's a fact, right? So he puts it out there as a fact, and so now she's had this conversation with him 20 times, or maybe 40 more like them, and she's like, you know what, this other site does it, or whatever. So can we just do it and move on with it? So then the marketing guy kind of dives in and says, well, is there data? Is there some general best? Can we follow best practices? What do other sites do? Things like that. And then, of course, the developer is going to do their trump card that absolutely no one can beat, which is, unless his boss is in the room, he's going to say it can't be done, right? And so the project manager, unfortunately, is kind of stuck in the middle of this, but she's really going to try to make it happen, and of course, you know, there's absolutely no progress. So then you end up with a situation where you're right back where you started 2 weeks later. So we focus on only having actionable meetings. So if you're sitting down in a meeting and someone says, should we have a pull down, we pick one of these phrases. You know, it might be, hey, we got a developer in the other room, let's continue with their meeting, and we'll look at it with a pull down in an hour and see if it looks like it might work. And if a developer can't do it in an hour, then we say, well, what's the worst that would happen if we skip the pull downs for this version, and see which one's the worst. Well, the old site has pull downs, so it can't be worse than the old site, and so many things are going to be better on the new site. Let's just leave it as pull downs. Or the old site didn't have pull downs, let's do that, because that's easy and safe. I'll add it to the next test. I mean, that's another thing we can go out there and do. And then the other one is, let's ship it, and especially if there's one person that's kind of the dissenter, you can just say, hey, how's this for a deal? We'll go live with it. We'll monitor this page in analytics. If we're finding the bounce rates over this amount over the first month, we'll revisit this. I mean, suddenly now you have all these escape phrases to just end that conversation fast and get on to actually building something and making something. Know why users are on a different page, on a specific page? People familiar with this idea of like you have portal pages and you have destination pages?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Know why people are on a given page? Do people familiar with portal versus destination? So there's basically two kinds of pages on a website. There's pages you want to get off of and pages you want to get to. As web designers, we rarely think about them that way. We think every page is a masterpiece and people want to be there. But when's the last time you really, 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 really wanted to go to the home page of a site? Like, if you go to the Apple site, you really don't want to be on the home page. You want to buy a friggin' iPhone 6. I mean, you want to get to the store page with the iPhone 6, right? I mean, that's what you want. If you went there in the past 48 hours, that's what you want. And so, you know, you think about it, portal pages you want to get off of, and the goal is to make them short. You want to focus on navigation. You want to focus on branding impressions. So users want to get off of portal pages. That doesn't mean you as a site designer can't use that to tell them something else. So for instance, Amazon's the king of this, right? So when you go through Amazon purchase, they have their one-click, which some users use, but their normal purchase process is like 4 more steps than it actually has to be. And the reason is because they make it easy for you to get through, but they're also still showing you other things you might want to buy. And Amazon, they take about a second to test enough data to know whether they're increasing sales or decreasing sales. And so even if they lose some people, they gain more on the upsells. So they can turn on a test for well less than 10 seconds on their server and turn it back off. They have a machine built for this. And they can tell scientifically whether that extra page made more purchases or less purchases overall. I mean, that's amazing, right? Don't you wish we all had those friggin' tools? But so the portal page, short navigation, branding, upsells, things like that you can do on it. You can't do too many of them because you have 40 upsells. It's not going to work. Destination pages, people talk about how long can a page be. If it's a destination page, you don't care. Like if you're really interested in the history of the president of the college that you're going to, you're going to read it if it's 9 scrolling pages or 2 scrolling pages, whether you're on your phone or your desktop. You want to read that history. As long as it's interesting, you'll keep reading. Portal pages, you're not. I mean, if you're like halfway down the home page before you find the button you want and it's this long scrolling page, you're going to be pissed. And home page is pretty much always a portal page. There are some exceptions where the destination is the home page. News sites come to mind, for example, where you go to New York Times, you probably want to be on the home page of New York Times. In terms of content, when you're writing a book, this is the advice they give all aspiring authors, is start with the shitty first draft. So I found this the other day, which I absolutely love. And so the theory is the hard part in creativity is to go from being mediocre to being great. But the reality is mediocre is like right there. You're more than halfway there if you do something mediocre. I mean, that's the hard part. And so one of the things that we do is almost every project that we do, all of the content people and all of the core web team create at least 1 page on the first day. And that does a whole bunch of things. First of all, it shows them that it empowers them to do it. It trains them on it. But we tend to use a custom install of Drupal that basically takes all the crap that is Drupal and makes it easy to use. And so the training is literally like 5 minutes of this. So it's the training out of the way. But more importantly, what it does is it gets them comfortable with it. And what's going to happen is if you have a team of like 6 people, someone's going to screw something up, right? And you're going to talk about it, and then we're going to make that person fix it right there in front of everyone else. Now suddenly it's okay to fail too, which is just wonderful. And so now you can start getting stuff out there and seeing what it looks like. Usually the other thing we try to do is on the first day have a prototype site that has navigation 60% final is what we tell people. Now what the hell 60%? I mean, how do you know whether it's 60 or 61% final, right? But at the end of the day, to sit down and say, hey, we have 10 navigation items here between the main nav and the utility navigation. Our feeling is that's about 60% final, which means a couple of the words are going to change, a couple of these might come off, and a couple more might go on. Is everyone okay with that? And people are like, yeah. And someone might say, I'm still really concerned that we don't have, we put international on there, and international should be buried under About Us. It shouldn't be on the main navigation because we don't do a lot of it. And then we log in right there and we move it under About Us. And they're like, that's all it takes to change it? That's wonderful. So good stuff. Fail early, fail often. What's my time check? 15 out of 21. I'm going to make it. All right. So the other thing is use your old site. So we were working with some people up at Dartmouth College, And so the debate came up, what about for students, for parents, for guidance counselors, for alumni, for like all of those, for current students, for prospective students, for high school students, for you know, the goldfish of students, you know, whatever all those things are. And so the question came up, and so what happened is there's 3 people there that are like for it, and they're like, they got their flags waving and their swords out, and people over here are like building a barricade, and everyone else in the back is just like, yeah, I don't know how to do anything, right? So we let it go on for a little while, and then we kind of put a stop to it, and we said, look, why don't we just test it? And we're like, well, how can we test it? Because we have to design a site based on how many things are going to be on the home screen. And we said, well, why don't we just put it up on your old site? And so then the techies were like, oh, this is really, really hard, and we'll think about it. Da, da, da. So we just kind of like brushed it under the table for the rest of the meeting, went back to the office, had a designer sit down for less than an hour, tack a bar that had those things onto their current design. Programmer sat down, wrote the snippet of code. We emailed it to them. 2 hours after we were back at the office, they had the snippet of code. They plugged it into their site, and we looked at analytics. And 2 weeks later, it was very clear 2 of those buttons got clicked on, and 6 of them didn't. So what did we build into the design? The 2 buttons that people clicked on. It was very, very painless. And so, I mean, the truth is, if your old site sucks, yeah, you might lose a click by testing something like that. But I mean, really, what's the worst that would happen when we did that? I mean, what's the worst that would happen? It took 3 hours total, and we probably saved 20 hours of conversation about it. And not only that, but we got better results, because what are the chances the conversations would have ended in the right way, not like bloodshed when he stabs her and then she shoots all them, and it's horrible. So test everything. So I'm a huge fan of not only kind of Steve Krug style of sit down, use the site, test the whole thing, see how things go, but also unit testing. Is anyone a programmer? And who knows what unit testing is? So unit testing, I'm going to try to be as accurate and still as layman as possible. So if I'm wrong, then I'm trusting you to like kick my butt. But the basic concept is you write, like, let's say I have code, and the code goes all the way from the ceiling to the floor. And I run it, and it breaks. Where is it broken? And so instead what you do is you take like the first half, and you make sure that it triggers just enough that you know the first half ran. And then and when you run your code, then you just have to look at this little report of all your unit tests that say this worked, this worked, this worked, this worked, this worked. So you can kind of break out your code and make it modular. And you can do the same thing with testing. And so working with Stockbridge School of Agriculture right here. And Stockbridge School of Agriculture is really fascinating. They're really, really well known for their agricultural programs. And so a lot of those are around sustainable agriculture. And sustainable agriculture has, I don't know, Birkenstock-wearing hippies is kind of their typical demographic. Female Birkenstock-wearing hippie is kind of, I mean, I'm stereotyping, but stereotypes exist for a reason, right? Then their other program that does really, really well is their turf management. Now, turf management is if your goal in life is to take care of the grass at an NFL stadium, you'll get a degree in turf management. And UMass, this sounds really, this is fascinating though. Check this out. UMass wins the turf ball almost every single year. So out of all the colleges in the world, UMass can grow better grass. UMass students can grow better grass than any. Princeton, Yale, Harvard, we grow better grass than anyone else. But those students are very, 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 very different than the people that are going into organic farming. I mean, they're mostly male. They're mostly into football or other sports or golf or whatever those other things are. And so as we started working with them, the tagline they were leading towards was "Join the Revolution." And so this was the message that we were looking at. And we went through and did a lot of work with them in terms of like, what photos do you think best embody Stockbridge School of Agriculture? And so this is kind of the one they came up with. You know, she can fit into a lot of different things. Da, 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 da. So what we did was we went out and did a test where we just got a whole bunch of different photos that are actually, you know, from a palette point of view, from a quality level, they're all pretty similar. But what we found is, resoundingly, one photo everyone had in there, you know, we basically would show it to people and say, which of these schools do you think you'd fit in at? Which one do you think you could learn the most at? Which one's most respectable? And every single person for every single one of those questions clicked that one. And we said, which one is the one that really is not for you? None of them picked that one. And so, whereas the one with the kind of moody woman up at the top there that they were originally leaning towards, everyone was like, you know what, they got trouble there. They got trouble there. The second thing we did is we took a whole bunch of taglines: make a difference, do what you love, build your own future, expand your world, et cetera, et cetera. All these things based on what we heard from them. And we asked people, you know, which one of these would you like to go to? Which one of these are professional? Which one of these aren't? And if you look at the counts, the one they wanted is dead in the middle. It had 6 negatives and 12 positives. That's actually not a very good ratio. But now compare it to the top one: make a difference and do what you love. 1 negative, 17 positive. I mean, that's a much stronger message. And so we do a lot of data, and we do a combination of design and data, right? So, and you know, this is actually pretty common, where you mix together what you're learning and what feels right. And we could have done the same exact test with absolutely crappy photos, and the results would have been completely useless, right? And so part of it is you need a good eye to do the right thing. Someone needed to come up with messages that actually worked, right? I mean, this isn't, it's a combination of expertise and experience. So, which leads us to design. Design is about intent, right? And so it's what you want people to know, feel, and do. And visual design is mostly around the feel. It's about the initial impressions you get from people, the first 7 seconds. Another tip I have is 1 month. So we have found time and time again that 1 month is the amount of time you have before everyone changes their mind. And so if we look at this slide and you all look at it and say, I agree with that slide, even if it is cut off on the bottom, I'm noticing now. You guys all look at it and say, we agree with that slide. If I show it to you all again, if we work on it consistently for a month from now, you're not going to like the color. You don't think that the fact that it's cut off is at all acceptable. You don't like the font. You think the white's a little too washed out on the blue on this projection screen, even though it looks awesome on the screen. You know, everyone's going to have a different thing, and they're going to start compounding. So, I mean, we've literally heard all of these things, right? I mean, how many people have been in the meeting where this sort of things come up like halfway through a project, right? For real? Raise your hands, people. Yes, good. I'm not the only one. I thought it was me for a second there. And so keep it to under a month, and you can get a lot, like ship something in a month, and then ship the next thing, and then ship the next thing, and ship the next thing is whenever possible. We've actually, we've launched 2 complete college websites in a month. One of them was for a for-profit school, and the only reason it took a full month is because their enrollment numbers were so low that they had a round of layoffs in between, which really tied up the decision makers and the marketing person we were working with for kind of obvious reasons. As soon as we went live, the number of applicants per visitor increased by 50%, like that day. So a month after we started working with them, enrollment was increasing at that rate. Imagine if they had spent 6 months for that redesign, how many students they were losing over that period of time. I mean, that pretty much, I don't know if it's the difference between the school still being in existence or not, but it has to be pretty damn close if they were on a round of layoffs right before we did it, and they were able to save 50% more. The other college we went live with, and both these colleges we won really, really prestigious national design awards for, so we didn't do it by cutting corners. The other one is a Connecticut college, and we had 12 decision makers on the committee. I mean, you know what it's like to have 12 decision makers, right? And so we walked out of the first day, and one of the women came up to me and she said, you know, I've never seen 3 people out of this 12 ever agree on anything before, and to have them all agree on the design of the site, the look of the site, to agree that the navigation was 60% final just totally blew her away. I mean, it's just totally amazing. Where did I go from that? Oh, that was at the month. And so part of it is to keep that momentum. So you get that sort of agreement. Don't wait 3 months until it all goes away, until someone retires and all those other things. So someone doesn't like yellow. Okay, brand. Okay, here's my brand test. Ready? Oh, wait, hold on. Let me talk through it for a second. I went too fast. I got ahead of myself. So I'm going to show you a whole bunch of screens. You're going to see each of them for 3 seconds. And at the end, I'm going to see if you can figure out the answer to at least one of these questions. Which one is targeted to women? Which one's for doctors only? Which one's the most popular? Which made it a $2 billion company? And which is homegrown? You have 3 seconds per slide, so it's not a long time. So pay attention. Look at the screen, not me. Don't say it. Don't say it. Think till the end, because there might be some surprises in there. Okay, so how many people think they know at least one of these? They have a pretty good guess about it. At least one. How many people think they might be able to guess more than one? Okay, go ahead. Tell me just describe which one and why you think it is.
Well, I agree with the person who said that the little
EKG was
doctors.
doctors?
That seems pretty doctory.
Yeah.
And then the one with the tomato, I would say would be targeted.
Okay. That sounds weird and sexist the way you said it, but it's okay. How about you?
Oh, me?
You had a couple, right?
Oh, I was at the other one.
Oh, okay.
I think the $2 billion one was first.
The first one was a $2 billion one?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Time for one more guess.
One of those.
Say it again?
There was one that kind of looked like Facebook. I think it was like the guy's information.
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Oh, okay.
One that looked like Facebook or LinkedIn?
Was it LinkedIn? I'm going to say that's the two.
Okay. Well, so here's the amazing thing. I don't know. I have no idea which of those were there. But you guys saw that. You guys had 3 seconds each, and you figured all that out, whether it's right or wrong. And that's what visual design is all about. Visual design is about giving the right feeling. What do you want people to feel? And so that's why it's important that we pick the right photo. That's why it's important why if we only have 6 words that are going to stand out and people are going to read them, that we use the right 6 words. Because that first impression, and there's been scientific tests about this, in 7 seconds you make 12 judgment calls about someone. You think you know how funny, how educated, whether it's someone you want to hang out with, whether it's someone you trust. You make all these judgment calls about people in 7 seconds. Same thing happens with your website. That's the job of a visual designer. And if your visual designer is asking you questions like, do you like that? Is that a good color? Are we using the colors that we need to use for the university? If they're focused on that level, you got the wrong designer. You need a designer that understands how to bring it up a level. And so, yeah. So tip 20, if you're having trouble getting your project done, speed up. And so this idea of taking your time and saying, look, we only have 1 more week and we're going to go live with it one way or another, will definitely change the tone of every single conversation. Not always for the better, but you're going to get a lot better result than if you let it drag on for another 6 or 12 months. And so think about what you can do to speed things up if things are going off the rail. The one thing I want to caution is to work quickly, you need more coordination and more project management, and you need to be on top of it. But it absolutely pays off because it takes less of everyone else's time. And I did hand out these little cards that everyone has about agile development. I'm a huge, huge fan of agile development. If anyone wants to talk to me about afterwards what that means, we're accidentally agile. Forever we're like, agile's the stupidest thing in the world. We'll never do that. And then we started refining our process, and we went and took a list. So about 5 years ago, we made a list of everything we hated in a web project, everything that turned the product to mud, everything that wasted the client's time, and we started putting them together. And what they started to come out with, a very similar list. It was all things like scheduling meetings or recap meetings or having a meeting, deciding on something, and a week later finding out the stakeholder that got back from vacation has a different idea about it. Or like it's all the same things, right? It's never the technology that breaks. Once in a rare while it is, but we don't work with that campus anymore. So yeah, so it's always those things. And so we looked at it and said, what if we take all of that out? And what we came up with is a process that by focusing, delivering things within a month and basically saying we have proven time and time again that we can make a website that can win awards, be 1,000,000 times better than your past website, convert better than your past website, meet your goals better than the last website, and save every single person on your team time and stress. It becomes a no-brainer, right? So anytime you can speed up, it's a good thing. And the other thing, this is a little hokey. I went back and forth as to whether putting this in here or not, but I think believe that it is possible to have a great web experience. And so I think a lot of people go into the web process thinking it's going to be like their last web process, which isn't always the best experience, right? And so you come in with this baggage. It needs to take this long. The programmer needs a week to give an answer to a question. The designer can't solve these conflicting needs of needing to look professional and still fun. Like you start off with all those assumptions of things that are hard or impossible. We have a very diverse audience. It's going to be really hard. Just believe that anything's possible and push for it, and you really can get there. And I can't wait until we get to the point where there's a couple of campuses around the country that are nailing this every single day, because a good campus team can, I mean, like a campus the size of UMass with a team of, I'm going to say 12 people, 12 web developer people, ranging, and a lot of them would be on the content, project management, design side, a couple web developers. There's no reason they can't be churning out 2-3 department websites a week with a team like that, and awesome ones, much better than they have right now. And it's just a matter of process and inertia and not believing that it's actually possible. Hokey, I know. And yeah, so that was, to make it even hokier, there's my picture. So. Okay, so I did save 10 minutes for questions, as I promised. So go ahead.
Sorry about the creepy generalization.
No, I was just trying to wake people up. It's okay.
But what was number 12?
Did I miss 12? I went to.
No, I just.
Oh, what was number 12? Okay. I thought I missed one. Here's another tip. This has nothing to do with higher ed. Never do a set number of things in your talk, because every time you change the order, and I changed it like 42 times, you have to renumber everything. There is a 12. Working meetings only.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, this is really all about, don't sit down to talk about how it might work. Sit down and try to make it work that way. And so when we set up our process, we always have developers either in the room or on call. And we'll do things. There's this cool thing that Corey invented, one of the guys that works with us. We call them sticky buckets. So we have these little sticky pads that are green, yellow, red, and blue. And so what we do is we'll sit down and we'll write down every feature or thing that we want to do. And we write it on one of those pads. And green means less than 2 hours, and yellow means less than 5 hours, and red means less than 10 hours, and red means more than 5 hours, and blue means we just don't know. We need an hour or two to find out. And then we go in and put sticky buckets, we put sticky pads and everything, and then we start putting it into the must-have, the nice-to-have, the already done, the we don't need to do bucket. And we do that as a team. And it usually takes surprisingly less time than you'd think it would take, maybe 40 minutes or so. And we have a game plan at that point. And so then what we do is we start taking the things off, and we just say to a programmer, hey, this one here, it's a blue question mark. We don't know how long it's going to take. Go spend an hour and a half now, and come back within an hour and a half, and let us know how far you got. And you'd be surprised the number of times they come back. We had one client. One of the ideas they had is they do a lot of events, and they wanted something on the page so you could get a reminder a week before the event. You could put in your email and you just get a reminder in the email. So if you see it, and I'm like, it's an awesome idea, and showed it to the programmers, and they're like, I have no friggin' idea how to do that. What are we going to do about that? So it was on the priority list. We got halfway down. We got to the point where it happened. We gave it to one of the programmers. They went out. They found a module that does it. They plugged in the module. The module had some quirks. We showed it to the client. We said, look, we spent an hour on this. We have a few options. We can spend 20 hours or so and try to rebuild it. We can spend a couple hours and try to hack it, or we can ship like this. And they looked at it, and we said, came up with, well, if we just change this wording here and ship it like this. Great. Ship it like this. Boom. Bonus feature. No stress. No discussions of scope changes. No, like it just flowed. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. Okay, other questions? Come on, I know it's 4:30, 5, almost 5. Anyone? Anyone? Maybe?
Okay, maybe.
Go for it. Go for it.
So I mean, this is about a big. I work at a university.
Yeah.
I'm a university librarian, and I'm faced with a project. We have a crappy website. Really bad, and it's like one page portal to a bunch of CMS. It's like LibGuides.
They're hard, right? Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, so basically, we use LibGuides. We use a home page. So I mean, do you have any like some of these things could be scaled down, I guess, to the size. We're one department, and we have our own server, so we can do what we want to do. And so by building a team, is exactly what I have to do.
Right.
With librarians, and I have to get students and other people involved to try to decide how we're going to make the site. So, I mean, maybe fewer, maybe our team could be smaller. Do you think it should?
Yeah, good questions. I love it. I love it. So, first off, I want to say Smith College Libraries, I think in 1 week they managed to migrate 100. So in a week we designed the site, programmed the site, built the core functionality, trained them on some tricky functionality because they have some more technical people on their team, and they migrated 180 pages from their old site to their new site and updated the content as they did it in 1 week. I mean, they're just phenomenal, right? I mean, like, just think of the dedication. And yeah, they're librarians, but you have that tool at your disposal. So I would think about how you can use it. And some of them were on the core team doing it, and some of them were just people that came in for like a 4-hour block. Someone on the ancillary team, they came in and they helped migrate this section over because they understand that section well. They're sitting in a room with a bunch of other people. When they have questions, they would just, and so we got a room. The room was almost exactly like this, except one desk narrower. I think it was 2 on one side and 1 on the other. We had a projector up front. Everyone had a computer that they were working on. In the front half, we were doing tricky, complex. Here's how you enter your hours, because they have like 6 different libraries, and it's just this weird scheduling, and you probably have some clue of what I'm talking about. And then the back half were people just entering content, and whenever anyone had a question, they'd raise a hand, and someone from the front would go up and help them with that and just power through it. And so, I mean, ultimately, you can get so much more done than you think you can get done. The other thing you're talking about was building the team. So that was an ancillary story. We'll go into the real story now. So so Toyota, we're kind of fans of Toyota. They have this idea of lean manufacturing, and so they revolutionized how manufacturing happens in the United States in so many ways, and that's how come Toyota became the largest car manufacturer in the world. They never set out to be the largest car manufacturer in the world. That was a byproduct of having the most efficient process. And so they do a million things to make their process more efficient. One of them, for instance, well, I'll give you an example. So one of our clients, Cole Morgan, they make periscopes for the Navy. And actually for the Army too, because Humvees and things have periscopes, which is fascinating to know, but true. And so periscopes are big, expensive, and heavy. And so they went through and audited their whole process and did what's called a Kaizen audit. And what they found is, in the process of making a periscope, the periscope spun around 23 times, which necessitated, among other things, moving walls a couple times during the building process of every single periscope. And every few years, they would damage a periscope while spinning it around in a big circle. And so they had all these processes and all this expense about making sure that doesn't happen. So they redesigned their whole factory floor so that raw materials come in one side, and it travels through the factory floor, and the periscope goes out the other side. And so they found things like, well, what about welding? You need to weld it in 6 or 7 different places. Well, a welding station costs what? $200,000 compared to a $17 million periscope. That's chump change. They put a welding station on wheels. So you put 2 welding stations, or you put a welding station on wheels and you move the welding station instead of the periscope. If you drop the welding station, yeah, you're not going to be happy, especially if it's on your toe or something. But you're out $200,000 instead of $17 million or whatever that turns out to be. And so, so that's called a Kaizen. And Toyota really invented it. Saturn was basically their way of sharing that knowledge with all of the U.S. car manufacturers. It took a long time. So 2 tips from them. One of them is they found it took about 2 years to get everyone on the team thinking about this idea of continuous improvement, as opposed to like, hey, that's my job, I'm done, I'm out of here. And so that was and that's one of the reasons why they shared it with all the American car manufacturers, because they wanted a bigger workforce, and they're having trouble finding people that were buying into this. They wanted to change manufacturing in the U.S. so that they could hire more people. So the other thing that they do is they say start with small wins. So when you come into an organization, what you do if you're going to do a Kaizen audit is you find the team of people that have a lot of pain and are willing to go out there and possibly fail. And you go in and you pick a small, discrete project. And you say, in a week, just the 4 of us are going to go and solve this problem. We're going to try 5 or 6 different things. We're probably going to fail a couple times. Let's just see how it goes. And we'll just do it under the radar. It's not the end of the world. It's no one's performance metric. And it's just been bugging us. It's been bugging you forever. It's been bugging you forever. I'm sick of hearing you bitch about it. I agree with you 100%. Let's just be done with it, right? And once you do that, then when you're doing your next one, more and more people are going to want to be part of it. And so part of it is around building consensus 1 step at a time. What we did is we've been talking about this for a while, and everyone was afraid of it. Everyone on my team. I mean, this is the stuff that we do in terms of building a website. It can be scary as shit, right? And so everyone was paranoid about it. We've been talking about it. We're saying we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. But we have to do this. We have to do this. And so finally, what we did is we took a client website. It was an artist's website, and we put the programmers in a room for 2 days. And we said, you have 2 days. There'll be no client interaction, no designer, and no project manager. Just see what you can do. I just want to see what you can do. Just grab Drupal. They weren't very proficient at Drupal at the time. Grab Drupal and see what you can do. At the end of the first day, they came back and said, you know what? We kind of got everything we could think of working, and we're kind of loving it. It's a million times better than the old site. And we have a designer and some client feedback now, please? Which is like the opposite of what programmers say, right? Like, I mean, how often do programmers say that, really? But they were like, we're bored now. We need someone to give us, more direction and take it to the next step. And so then we just started working that into our process. So every time we do something, we have a programmer there, and we say, you got 2 hours, you got an hour, you got 30 minutes. Go and try something and come back and let's check in. And the next step was to get the designers on board, which took a while longer. So the designers would say, well, okay, I want the design inspiration a week in advance, and I want a day ahead of time to do some initial comps before we go on with the client. And then they got it down to, okay, well, I need a half a day to do some initial, I want to do initial mock-ups. And they were like, okay, well, I need at least an hour to do research on competitor sites before I go into the meeting. And now we're at the point where designers are like, yeah, if I can see some stuff the day before and have 30 minutes with it, that would be great. And if not, I'll be fine. I'll go into the meeting, we'll talk to the clients, we'll figure out what they need. We're going to design something. And if they look at it and say it sucks, we'll design something else. We only lost 2 hours. There's not much to lose. So they've done enough. So part of it is kind of building up that comfort level just by, I guess, a million paper cuts until you don't realize it. Mixing my metaphors in a horrible way, but it is 5 o'clock for me too. Any last questions? I can hang out afterwards for any one-on-one questions if anyone has anything, but thank you so much for coming. I hope this was entertaining. I hope everyone learned at least 2 or 3 little tips they can come back and make their life better in some way. And cool.
You put up the slide with the questions. You have 5 questions to derail, but like to pull them in, and you might.
Do you remember what number that was?
Is this on SlideShare?
Can be.
There was, no, further back.
It was further back. I think it's. Hey, hold on. I think I know where it is. It's buried. That one, right?
Can I take a picture?
Yeah, please. On SlideShare? Does someone want it on SlideShare?
Yeah.
I can put it on SlideShare. Yeah.
What is your SlideShare?
Probably Gravity Switch. Jason at Gravity Switch. You can email me and I'll confirm it. But Gravity Switch is my company name. I'll have someone at the office do it, so it's probably SlideShare/Gravity Switch. I'm assuming if such thing. I don't know. I don't do that sort of thing. I just give it to someone else. I know that's lame of me to say. I'm like such a. I'm a bad man. This guy's gonna. He's gonna. You called me out on my comment. Okay, cool. Anything else? Thanks, guys and gals and people. Is this the last talk in this room? Does anyone know?
No, there was something right after.
Okay, I thought so.